Hello my friends, I thought I'd take you into the woods with me today because we're having a heat wave here in the UK and I didn't want to stay inside to record a video. I saw this Eckhart Tolle video on YouTube a little while ago now, and when I saw it I thought I have to make a video about this. Now this is not an Eckhart bashing video. I have a huge amount of admiration and respect for Eckhart's work. I've read his books many times and his work really did help me in my recovery. And in this video that I'm going to talk about today, he gives the standard advice that Eckhart often gives, mainly to be more present, to give a bit of a gap before you eat. And this is stuff that is not, it's not that it's terrible advice, it's just that when you're in it, it can feel completely inaccessible. So firstly, I want to show you the man who's describing his problem. And I want you to watch his face closely and listen to the audience's reaction.
I experienced it around 3:45 or 4 p.m. in the office, and you know, I would have done so well up until then, and then I just go crazy. I go to Waitrose and I'll buy a very large bar of chocolate and some sweeties. Notice there's a tuck shop here as well. And I will just destroy it like it's a drug. Yeah, I'll eat it. It is quite extraordinary how I consume those things. But it is that, you know, it's funny to like laugh about it, and it's like, you know, because it can slip through so easily. But you know, I'm worried, you know, that I'm going to end up a diabetic. You know. Yeah. Sounds like not that big a deal, but it really it's every day.
Yes.
You have probably experienced this yourself. If you're someone who struggles with food, like it's a big problem in your life, you have probably experienced times when you have tried to tell people what's going on and they've kind of minimized it, or they say they get it, or they say that they do the same thing. But when food has become such a big problem in your life, sometimes it's like you never get a reprieve from it because you have to deal with food every single day. Someone else might have other kind of problems that occasionally they get a break from their problems. For anyone who's never really struggled with that strong, overwhelming compulsion to eat, how can they understand it? And I think this man handles himself with such class, the way he reasserts how difficult it is. I think a lot of people think they can relate to this problem because most people overeat sometimes, but if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. And what I see in that man's face is the shame. You see his face tighten, go serious, he drops, he's trying to make himself understood. So here's the advice that Eckhart Tolle gives him.
At first I would suggest to introduce a delay in giving in to that pull, so that you give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to observe the pull, to observe the energy field that lives in you, that you I call it the pull, to wanting you to go and get it and then eat it. So bring in some awareness. You may not immediately be able to stop it, but at least you introduce a delay, and in the delay period, you observe what it feels, what this energy pull feels like. But your meditation object is that compulsion that you feel, the energy pull. So you make that into a meditation object. And then probably there is a possibility that the compulsion will become less, but probably not immediately. So you buy it, and then I recommend once you've bought it, you put it on your desk, introduce another 3, 4, 5 minutes when you just contemplate that thing and feel the pull.
Now I am sure you've heard similar advice about just give yourself a gap, take some time to pause, wait 5 and 10 minutes and see if the urge passes. Obviously Eckhart's taking it one further because he's talking about really being with the urge. And again, that's not bad advice. But the problem is, I used to hear this advice when I was struggling, and I think, oh my goodness, of course, how did I forget? Presence is the answer. If I can just stay present when I eat, then I can't lose consciousness and I won't binge. And to begin with, I would feel excited about that. So maybe I would manage to do it and I'd be, this is great, it's working because I'm not overeating. Except that very, very quickly, I would have a moment where the resistance was just so high. It was like I couldn't, there was no part of me that would even remember or want to or contemplate the idea of pausing because it was so urgent. But then here's the thing, I blame myself for that. I thought, oh, it's because I'm inconsistent, I'm undisciplined, I have no willpower, I'm lazy. All I need to do is stay present and I won't binge, and I can't even manage to do that. And so it felt like another way that I was failing, because I could see how being present around food can be helpful, but it just didn't always feel possible. And so that part of me I thought of as self-sabotage or the rebel. But ultimately what it was resistance. And I'm going to come back to that, because I also want to comment on something that Eckhart says that I do like. He talks about not suppressing it. You're not fighting with the urge. And I think that's sometimes how it sounds if you've done CBT and they'll talk about leaving this reactionary gap. It can feel like you are white knuckling it through it. It feels like you are spiraling, you're feeling anxious, you are obsessing about food, you're fully in it. You're not in the presence mode of observing that he's talking about. And he also says it's not just about throwing the food out and feeling disgusted with it. However, he does say, he infers that you can probably expect for it to change and then to not want to eat as much and to end up leaving some or throwing it away. Here's where mindful eating gets people in a tangle. Because often when you mindfully eat, the expectation, and often the experience for a lot of people, is that you will eat less. Even if you're saying to yourself, I can eat as much until I'm feeling whatever it might be, there can be a part of your brain that is reading that like a type of scarcity, like a type of restriction. If I'm mindful, it means I have to stop when I've had enough. And oh, if I'm just present, that'll be the thing that makes it change. And because there's this desperation for this to change, that desperation for something to change completely muddles up the process, because it doesn't feel okay if you're present to still binge. It doesn't feel okay if you're present to eat as much as you do, because you're thinking, if I was truly present, I wouldn't do this. And this is where we get in a conflict. This is where the resistance comes from. And later on in the video, Eckhart Tolle talks about a personal friend of his who suffered from an overpowering compulsion around food. And Eckhart describes this friend of his as seriously overweight. Although this person is a friend, Eckhart also works with this person. So imagine that. If I'd imagined that when I was struggling, I had Eckhart Tolle as a friend, as a personal friend who was helping me out with this stuff, I'd think full recovery is definitely in the cards for me. But Eckhart admits that whilst his friend lost some weight, which seems to be Eckhart's measure of getting better, which is a bit problematic, but that aside, he also says that his friend never really truly recovered from this compulsion to overeat. And the friend's passed away now. We don't know that's anything to do with the eating, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that particularly when someone, and it's often talked about in spiritual circles, is giving out this advice about a problem that sounds straightforward and sounds like it makes sense, if you're finding it a challenge to implement, my request of you is don't go straight to, oh, the problem must be you for not being able to follow the advice, even with anything that I say. Because I'm talking about this really broad topic and people have different reasons and different experiences and might need different approaches. It is true for me that finding a way to become more present with my food and with my eating was essential for me to recover. But no, that doesn't mean that I never eat in front of the TV. And no, it doesn't mean that I never overeat. I remember in my binging days, I went through a stage of being quite into Janine Roth's content. And Janine Roth has a quote that goes, presence and compulsion cannot coexist because the latter depends on obliteration of the former. Basically meaning that you cannot be in compulsion and present at the same time. And that made a lot of sense to me, and I kind of held that as a bit of a mantra in my head. But I actually disagree, because I think you can be present and you can be in compulsion. It can be so challenging to be able to be present with something that feels so urgent and so tightly tied to a survival drive. But it's more than just that, because I could hold my breath right now and it feels absolutely fine. I can be present with this feeling. I notice a bit of pressure in my body. My brain is telling me that I want to breathe, but it's okay being with that urge to breathe. And it was no problem being really present with the urge building up to breathe. And that's because there's no judgment. I'm not thinking to myself, oh, how long have I got to hold my breath for? Am I allowed to breathe yet? Is it right to breathe now? Should I be breathing over here or over there? There's no conflict. So if you find yourself in conflict, in resistance to being present, take it back a step. Maybe the focus right now is to figure out how to be present with that resistance, with that conflict. I used to think of my rebel as this self-sabotaging, destructive force that recovery meant I had to figure out how to destroy that part of me. And I wish I'd learned sooner that what I actually needed was to develop a different relationship with that part. You might be wondering, well, how am I supposed to do that? That part is often people who have strong rebels. We tend to have that experience of we can feel trapped quite easily. We can feel like our freedom is being threatened quite easily. I can feel like my freedom is being threatened even when I'm the only one who's trying to hold myself accountable to something. So I just saw myself as unconscientious because I was okay at being accountable to other people, not when it came to myself. And I have observed that the people with the strongest rebels have normally been the people that have had their freedom threatened the most earlier in life. This is what can be frustrating about the rebel, as it seems to crop up now when it is not needed. But we carry our histories around with us, in our conditioning, in our nervous system. So when we depersonalize it, when we stop making it mean like some moral failing about our character, that's when it becomes easier to be present with that part. That's when it becomes easier to see what the part is trying to do. I have so much compassion for my rebel now. I have so much compassion for my resistance. Often when you start unpicking resistance, in there is some kind of fear and or shame. Resistance, it arises because the part of you that is feeling resistant is trying to protect you from something. So understanding what it is that it's trying to protect you from, being able to accept and welcome that part and thank it for what it's trying to do, means you can start to commune with it. So if this stuff is relatable to you, if it makes sense, I have done quite a few videos on inner rebels and working with resistance. So I'll link to some of those videos here. And I also want to share some exciting news from this week, and that is, after over 6 years of procrastinating, my book is finally available on all the audiobook platforms, and it is narrated by me. So if you have my book sitting on your shelf but you haven't got around to reading it, or if you are someone who just prefers to listen to your books, you might want to check out those early downloads and reviews. Help me so much. So until next time, my friend, I'm going to go indoors because it is absolutely sweltering here in the UK. I was just about to tell you where I have sweat, but I don't think you want to hear that. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you on the next video.